Hello friends, this is your friend back with a new fanfic. What if Minato and Jiraiya sealed the entire Kyuubi into Naruto? One decision changes Naruto's destiny forever. If you like powerful Naruto what if stories, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin. Chapter 1 A Different Outcome. Minato Namikaze, the Yondaime Hokage of the village hidden in the leaves, stood atop the Hokage monument observing the Kyuubi no Yoko destroying his village and was trying to think of a way to stop its rampage. Why is this happening? What is that masked man's goal in doing all of this? Is he just trying to spite the leaf or is there something more? Minato thought to himself, having already had his duel with the masked shinobi but being unable to kill him left him greatly disturbed. As he was organizing his thoughts, he witnessed the Kyuubi charging an enormous amount of chakra into a large mass. Knowing what was coming next, Minato pushed the thoughts out of his head for the time being and prepared for the incoming attack. When the beast unleashed the mass of chakra towards him, he used an advanced version of the Hirishin no Jutsu to send the attack away from the village, much to the Kyuubi's annoyance. Minato let out a sigh of relief that he was able to successfully divert the attack, imagining the amount of destruction it could have caused if it struck true. He stood atop his own head carved into the earth and made his decision. He steeled himself as he teleported, with Hirishin, to a small safe house where he had brought his newborn son Naruto and his wife Kushina when the Kyuubi appeared. As he made his way to the room where the two most important people in his life were, he was surprised to see the tall white-haired man standing in the doorway awaiting him. Jiraiya-sensei. I had no idea you were here. This might not as hopeless as it seems. With you here I'm sure we could reseal the Kyuubi back into Kushina. Minato began but was silenced mid-sentence upon seeing the solemn look on the Sanin's face. Minato. I'm sorry to tell you there is no way we can save Kushina at this point. She has been weakened far too much by the removal of the Kyuubi and is only still living thanks to her status as an Uzumaki, but she will not last much longer, though there may be another way to stop the beast's rampage. Jiraiya stated as he felt himself losing his control on his emotions. Jiraiya was truly saddened at having to tell his student that his wife was going to die and there was nothing that could be done about it, but now wasn't the time for wishful thinking or false hope. They needed to stop the monster before it was able to cause any more damage to the village. What are you thinking, sensei? Minato asked, listening intently. We will have to seal the beast into a new host. Jiraiya said as calmly as he could. He had no idea what Minato was going through and had to try and keep him calm. Sensei. Who could possibly bear the burden? Why don't I use the… Minato began to suggest the only method he could think of before his old sensei cut him off. Absolutely not, Minato. It would be a waste of life for you to use the Reaper Death Seal. As much as I do not want to do it, there is one who could bear the burden of the foxes. Only an Uzumaki can hope to contain the beast within him, and there is only one option that we know of. Jiraiya said. Sensei, I can't seal the entirety of the Kyuubi into Naruto. He isn't even an hour old. Also, even if I wanted to, the only seal I know to accomplish it wouldn't be able to seal the entirety of the fox's chakra. Minato started. You are correct, Minato, if you were the only one sealing the beast into the boy. If we both place an 8 trigrams seal on him, creating a 16 trigrams seal, it would be enough to seal all of the beast's chakra. Using the Reaper would leave your son an orphan and the village without its leader. He may be young, but with you here to guide him he can learn to tame the beast and become a fine young shinobi. Jiraiya said, still trying to keep his cool but slowly failing. Minato stood for a moment considering his master's words. He had resigned himself to sealing the best in himself with the Reaper Death Seal to rid the world of the fox for good, but what his sensei was saying made sense. Unsure what to do, he walked past Jiraiya and into the room where Kushina and Naruto were laying on the bed. Kushina was holding her baby boy in her arms when she looked at Minato. Minato, I heard everything. I may not like the idea of Naruto becoming the Jinchuriki, but if that means he gets to grow up with his father alive, that's better than him growing up an orphan. I know that I don't have much longer left, but I have lived a happy life. Minato, you've made me a mother and shown me nothing but love. I can die happy knowing you will look after our son. My only regret is not being able to be there for him when he grows up. Kushina finished with a long sigh, tears threatening to fall from her eyes, but I will be coming with you to bring that oversized fur ball down, Yano. Minato cracked a small smile hearing his wife's verbal tick and seeing her ready for what was about to happen. He took one last breath and teleported everyone in the room to the Sandaime Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, who was currently engaging the best in an attempt to drive it out of the village. Minato, where have you been? Hiruzen asked, still holding Enma, who was currently transformed into the adamantine staff. No time to explain, Sandaime-sama. We have a plan to deal with the beast, but I am going to need you to get everyone away from here. Minato stated to Hiruzen in a serious tone. Hiruzen studied Minato and Jiraiya for a moment, and then, seeing the determined expression on his students' and successors' faces, the former Hokage knew the Minato and Jiraiya would be able to deal with the beast, so he chose to trust Minato's judgment. Calling the retreat, he gave one last glacé towards the two shinobi and prayed that they would come out of this alive. Are you ready, Minato? Jiraiya asked. No, but this has to be done. Minato responded, summoning the sealing altar. Kushina, can you bind it while we prepare the seal? Of course I can, Baka. This overgrown fleabag won't know what hit him, Yano. Kushina said in a weak but determined voice as she summoned her chakra chains to hold the beast back. Minato summoned a small altar and placed Naruto on it while Jiraiya began creating the sealing formula around the altar. Once the preparations were complete, both men began forming the hand seals required to complete the seal. After a moment, both ninja placed their hands together and shouted, Fuinjutsu. 16 trigrams seal. Fuin. With a loud crack and a puff of smoke, the Kyuubi no Yoko was gone in a flash. Everyone stood still for a moment as everyone released a deep breath, as all that could be heard was the screaming baby Naruto. After everything had happened, Kushina collapsed and Minato flashed to her, catching her and holding her in his arms. With tears streaming down his face, he could feel Kushina's life force leaving her as she began to fade. Kushina, Minato began trying to stifle his tears and speak clearly. Minato, can you let me say goodbye to Naruto? Kushina said weakly as Jiraiya brought over the small bundle of life to its mother, as Naruto instantly calmed and began staring at his mother. Naruto, there is so much I wanted to teach you, and so much I wanted to see while I watched you grow. I'm so happy that I could bring you into this world with Minato. I wish the circumstances were better, but I can die happy knowing the Minato will be here to guide you. Kushina, I'm so sorry that I wasn't able to save you. I should have been able to stop this from happening, Minato said, sobbing. Minato, you showed me more love than I could have dreamed of receiving. I'm truly happy I could make you a father. You are a hero, Minato. I don't want to hear any more of this self-pity from you, Yano. Kushina said weakly, punching Minato in the arm. Well, I guess this is goodbye, Minato. Please protect our son and show him how to be a great man like his father. Kushina finished as she finally succumbed to her fate. Minato held his wife and child in his arms, tears flowing down his face. Looking down at Naruto, he managed to calm himself a little. Naruto, I promise I will be the best father I can to you. Minato said as he was still choking on tears. Jiraiya stood nearby witnessing the horrible scene. He approached Minato and placed a shoulder on his shoulder. If you ever need, just say the word and I will be here for the both of you. Jiraiya assured his former student. Minato merely nodded, not trusting himself to speak. 1 week later, Minato sat in his office holding his young son. Minato was dressed in black formal garments, having just left the memorial service for those who had died during the attack, and was trying to calm his son down as he had not stopped crying since he had arrived at his office. He was here to check in with Hiruzen, who was temporarily filling in his Hokage for Minato, and make sure that everything was going smoothly with getting the village back on its feet. Minato, I have told you 3 times this week, go home and stay home. You need time to heal. I can handle the village for a little while until you have gotten back on your feet. Hiruzen scolded his young successor. But Sandaime-sama, the entire village is trying to heal. How can I call myself a leader if I back out at their time of need? Minato complained. Stubborn as always, Sarutobi-sensei can handle the village for a little while longer. A new voice was heard. Jiraiya-sensei. Why, how can I just sit by? Minato pleaded. Oh, shut it. Take a break and bond with your son. But we do need to talk, Minato, so go home, get some rest and calm Naruto down, and I will meet you there in a little while. Jiraiya stated as he began shoving Minato out of his office. A few hours later, Minto was sitting on his couch, having just managed to put Naruto to sleep, attempting to calm his mind from everything that had occurred in the past week. His mind was racing when he heard a knock on the door. Minato slowly walked to the door and opened it, revealing his white-haired former sensei. "Minato, how's the little one?" Jiraiya asked, stepping inside the Namikaze household. "Just got him to bed actually, he quite the little ball of energy, much like his mother." Minato mused. Jiraiya stood in silence for a moment before speaking. "Minato, I wanted to talk to you about what happened that night. How did the seal fail?" "We were attacked by a masked shinobi. He was skilled, also had knowledge of the weakening of the seal during childbirth. He had managed to kidnap Kushina and teleported away, then extracted the Kyuubi. After this I used Hirishin to get to Kushina and attempted to eliminate the masked shinobi. When we fought, I only managed one hit on him, and I had to use the level 2 Hirishin just to do that. He was somehow able to simple slip through all my attacks. After I managed to strike him, he teleported away and I did not see him again." Minato finished. "Any idea who he could be?" Jiraiya asked. "No, I've never faced anyone with similar abilities," Minato stated. "So an unknown enemy with mostly unknown abilities infiltrated the village with knowledge of the Kyuubi and the weakening of the seal. This is trouble. Do we know what his goal was?" "No, sensei. I assumed it was simply to destroy the Leaf Village, but he almost seemed to be attempting to claim the Kyuubi." Minato replied. "So here is the question, if he was trying to capture the Kyuubi, is he also after the other tailed beast? Is he working alone or is he in a group? Is he simply trying to amass power or is there some bigger plot?" Jiraiya began speculating. "This could spell trouble, and a lot of it." Minato replied. "Minato, I am going to leave the village for a while, maybe a few years, and attempt to find out what I can about anything connected to the Biju or this masked shinobi." Jiraiya stated, "I have a lot of contacts throughout the elemental nations, I will send you updates as often as I can with anything relevant." "Are you sure, Jiraiya? I would hate to see you leave the village again." Minato replied, "And Naruto can grow up without knowing his uncle Jiraiya." "Oh, I won't stay gone this time, I will come back and see the Gaki." Jiraiya said, "Can't have the kid growing up with and being a complete failure with the ladies." Minato cracked a smile at that. "Be careful, Jiraiya, I will send you updates on Naruto when I can. Try to stop by as when you are around." Jiraiya smiled at his former student turned Hokage. "Will do, Minato." "Before you leave, sensei, I had a question," Minato stated. "You need to learn to stop calling me sensei," Jiraiya scolded. "What is it, Minato?" "I am thinking of giving Naruto Kushina's last name, Uzumaki, what do you think?" Minato asked. "Why might I ask?" Jiraiya was curious as to why he would not want to give his son the Namikaze name. "One, to keep him safe. Kami knows how many enemies I have, and if the world were to know his legacy, he would be an even bigger target than her already is. Also, Kushina was the last of the once great clan. I claim no clan and I do not want to see the Uzumaki name die, as one last homage to Kushina." Minato explained. Jiraiya pondered the young Hokage's words and could not help but agree. "You are right, and if in the future you do want to pass on your name you can, but with Naruto being the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi he will have a huge target on his back." "My point exactly," Minato said, looking at Jiraiya, "so I guess this is goodbye for a while then." "Yes, Minato, I will keep in touch and try to make regular stops in the village," Jiraiya stated, making his way to the door. Minato walked up to his former sensei and clasped his hand firmly. "Stay alive out there, I will keep in touch." Jiraiya nodded firmly and stepped out of the Namikaze Uzumaki household and shunshined away. Time skipped 6 years. Naruto stood in the small training ground outside of his house. He had taken to dressing similar to his dad, wearing his blue long-sleeve shirt and pants but with the distinct orange Uzumaki symbol embroidered on the back of his shirt. Naruto was currently trying to get used to throwing his father's strange kunai. It had been a month since Naruto had turned 5 and his dad had been helping him train ever since, though they were only doing basic conditioning, taijutsu and shurikenjutsu. Naruto still enjoyed the training time he got with his father. Though Minato spent much time with Naruto, being the Hokage made it difficult. When Minato was unable to escape his duties, Naruto had taken to sitting with his dad in his office when he would allow it, and reading some of his books or scrolls. Today, however, Minato had an important meeting with the elders, so he asked Naruto to practice with his kunai and shuriken while he was away. Naruto, however, decided to nab a few of his father's kunai and try and practice with those instead. "Man, this is harder than I thought," Naruto thought to himself, but I have to prove to dad I'm ready to use them even if he thinks I'm not. Minato had told that he would allow Naruto to practice with his special kunai after Naruto had mastered, or at least to the basic extent, using regular kunai, which meant hitting all 10 targets at least 10 times in a row. Naruto could only hit 7 out of the 10 targets most of the time with regular kunai, but he thought he was ready for his dad's but found he could hardly hit even one. Unbeknownst to Naruto, however, Minato had returned from his meeting and had been watching his son for some time. As he saw the look of frustration on Naruto's face, he decided he would go help his son, after playing a little joke on him for not listening. Minato got a mischievous grin on his face as he watched Naruto go to throw his last kunai. Just as he was about to start his thrust, Minato flashed behind him, causing Naruto to fall over in shock. "Dad, it's not funny to scare me like that, Naruto protested, standing back up and dusting himself off. "Naruto, I know you want to get better, and you are, but you must learn patience and master the basics in order to become a great shinobi. Once you master your basic kunai training, then I will teach you the trick to using my kunai. Just promise me you will not shrug off the basics," Minato said in a caring tone. "Also, you must learn how to appreciate a good joke because the look on your face was priceless." "Dad, it's not funny, but I do understand the importance. I just wanted to try and be more like you, Naruto said, still aggravated. His dad caught him off guard. "It's okay, Naruto, you are so much like your mother, it's frustrating sometimes. But I didn't start at the top, I had to learn all of this stuff just like you," Minato said with a smile. "Why don't we take a break? I have something I wanted to talk to you about." "But Dad, I'm getting so close with the kunai," Naruto pouted. "What if we go out for ramen? How does that sound?" Minato suggested, grinning at his son's sudden change in mood. When Minato had discovered how much the little blonde loved the place, he had placed one of his trademark seals in the ramen stand. Naruto and Minato sat down and ordered their food. Once the food arrived, Naruto quickly began to devour his bowl and Minato began to laugh at his son's antics. After a few moments, Minato tossed a leaf onto Naruto's forehead. "Naruto, you have so much potential. You could easily become a greater shinobi than me, but you must learn patience. Every shinobi must master the basics first, or you will be doomed to make simple mistakes, either costing you or someone close to you their life. Listen to me, Naruto, I know you don't like it and I know it's boring, but do you know what we do with things we don't like?" Minato asked. "We work until we are so good at them that we don't have to think about it anymore," Naruto exclaimed. "That's right, Naruto. Now I'm sure you are wondering what the deal with the leaf is, right?" Minato asked as Naruto simply nodded his head. "Well, what would you say to me teaching you a jutsu?" "Yes Dad, please teach me something awesome like your Hirishin. I can be the Orange Flash and we can be the ultimate tag team, Naruto beamed, jumping excitedly. "Maybe one day, but you're not quite ready for that one yet. But before I can teach you this jutsu, you need to be able to control your chakra. Do you remember what chakra is?" Minato asked his son. "Chakra is created when two other forms of energy are molded together. Physical energy is collected from each and every one of the body's cells and can be increased through training, stimulants, and exercise. Spiritual energy is derived from the mind's consciousness and can be increased through studying, meditation, and experience." "But what does that have to do with it?" Naruto asked. "Well, Naruto, chakra is essential to performing any jutsu, and in order to perform them to the highest levels and to avoid accidents, one must first be able to control their chakra easily. So I'll make a deal with you. If you can make that leaf stick to your forehead for a whole day using your chakra, I will teach you how to walk up walls and walk on water," Minato said as he demonstrated the exercise he wanted his son to complete. "Alright, that's so cool. You got yourself a deal, Dad. I'll work really hard and have this down in no time," Naruto exclaimed. "Also Dad, do you think I can skip studying tonight? Naruto, you once told me you wanted to be the greatest Hokage. Now tell me, what is the Hokage?" Minato asked his son. "The Hokage is the leader and the protector of the village. He is one of the wisest and strongest shinobi in the village, and it is his job to pass knowledge and give protection to the future generation so they may continue to pass on the will of fire," Naruto said happily. "So how are you going to accomplish that if you are too stupid from skipping your studies?" Minato asked, laughing and ruffling his son's hair. "Alright Dad, so am I reading more on history today?" Naruto asked a bit dejectedly. Cheer up buddy, no I think you've studied it enough for now. I actually wanted you to start on something a little different. Minato said, handing Naruto a small book. The basics of Fuinjutsu. Dad, what is Fuinjutsu? Naruto asked, confused. Fuinjutsu is the art of sealing Naruto, and it is one of the shinobi's most versatile tools if mastered. Your mother and her clan were known for their prowess in the art, even feared for it. Minato explained. So mom was really good at this. Then it must be awesome. Alright dad, I'll be the best there ever was, ya know. Naruto exclaimed. Alright Naruto, let's head back. Go ahead and read the first few chapters in that back and turn in for the night. We are upping your training tomorrow, so we need to be up bright and early. Minato said as he pat his son on the back. Chapter 2, Revelations and Training. Minato watched as his son run through his new training regimen, which he had started Naruto on that morning. Though he kept it somewhat tame as to not injure Naruto, it consisted of a lot of long-distance running, agility training, and general strength-type workouts such as push-ups and crunches. Though the workout themselves weren't too bad, but what made Naruto start sweating was the addition of leg and arm weights. Minato started him light, a 15-pound vest, 10 pounds on each leg and 5 on each arm, but Naruto was still struggling to get through the entire workout. Once Naruto finally finished his last set of push-ups, he sat back on the ground trying to catch his breath. Minato looked at his son, smiling all the while. I'm proud of you Naruto. I know that was tough, but you pushed through it. Once this starts to get easier for you, I'm going to increase the weights on your limbs so by the time you go to the academy you'll be strong as an ox. Dad, that was crazy. I don't think I can keep doing this every day, ya know. Naruto complained, panting and starting to feel the soreness in his muscles. I know it's tough buddy, but what do we do when something is tough? Minato asked his son. We work our butts off until it becomes easy. Naruto said. Yes indeed, Minato said, ruffling his son's hair. Do you remember that book I gave you a few weeks back Naruto? Naruto looked at his father and thought for a moment. That one about Fuinjutsu? Yes, how far in it have you gotten? Minato asked curiously. Only the first few chapters. I was trying to understand it but it was just so confusing. Naruto complained. Minato cracked a smile. Yes, it is a very complex art that takes years to master. I just wanted you to understand the very basics of it so you can build on it later. Also, why did the first chapter make such a big deal out of handwriting? Naruto asked curiously. Because even the smallest mistake when writing a seal can be catastrophic. At best it will make the seal useless, at worst you could end up dead. Minato explained. Okay dad, but it also explained that sealing could be used for a lot of things, and it said something about one of the higher arts was creating Jinchuriki. What is that dad? Naruto asked curiously. It didn't really explain it, so I was curious if you might know. Minato took a long pause as he stared at his son with a pensive expression on his face that caused Naruto to feel a bit uneasy. He was not sure Naruto was ready to learn about the Kyuubi and where it now resided, but he did deserve to know. It was obvious to Naruto that something was different about him. Even though the villagers treated him with respect due to him being the son of the Hokage, they still held some contempt for the boy and tried to avoid him as much as possible. The kids his age would follow the lead of their parents when they avoided little Naruto, which made it difficult for him to make any friends. Minato looked hard at his son with a serious expression and decided it was best for him to know why people treated him differently, with the hope that Naruto would be able to understand. Naruto, do you know what the Biju are? Minato asked his son, but Naruto simply shook his head. Well, the Biju are 9 beasts of pure chakra whose power is immeasurable. I am sure you remember the stories of the Kyuubi that attacked the village. Yeah, but you got rid of the Kyuubi, right? That's why you are the hero of the leaf. Naruto smiled up at Minato. Yes Naruto, the Kyuubi is one of them and is considered the most powerful of the 9. However, you can't simply get rid of one of the Biju. I was not the only hero that day Naruto, I was only able to stop the fox with your help, Minato said as Naruto gave him a confused look. A Jinchuriki is a person who has one of the 9 Biju sealed inside of them. You are the Jinchuriki for the Kyuubi Naruto, you are the hero that keeps the village safe every day. Minato explained, hoping his son would understand what he was saying. So the Kyuubi is inside of me? Naruto asked, getting a nod from Minato. Is that why the villagers all treat me so strangely? Did they think I am dangerous? Am I dangerous? Does that mean me and the fox are the same? Naruto had started rapid-firing questions and it took Minato a few moments to calm him down in order to explain everything to him. Naruto, this is why I wanted you to understand how sealing worked. I would describe it more as you are its jailer. Sealing a kunai into a scroll does not make that scroll the kunai, just as what is inside of you sealed away does not make you that monster Naruto. You are a hero to this village even if others do not see it, and if you grow up and prove that you are Naruto and not the Kyuubi to the people of the village through your big heart, I know that people will treat you better. Minato explained, putting his arm around his son's shoulder. I guess that makes sense, Dad, but if that's the case, does this change me being able to become a great ninja? Naruto said, still processing the information that was just presented to him. This changes nothing, Naruto. You are still my son and soon to be a fellow shinobi of Konoha. Minato said with a smile, how about I show you the trick to throwing my kunai today? Naruto's face lit up upon hearing those words. He didn't care about any of this. So what if there was a monster inside him and that's why the village treated him funny? He had his dad and right now that's all that mattered to him. A few hours passed as Naruto finally managed to stick a few of his dad's odd kunai into some of the targets they had set up. After a while, Naruto asked his dad if he had any tips for the leaf exercise his dad had given him. Minato sat down and walked through how to focus his chakra to a single point and control the flow in order to keep the leaf attached to his forehead. Time skip about a month. Once again Naruto and Minato were going through their morning routine of training. Naruto's weight had been increased to 20 pounds on each leg and 10 on each arm at this point, and this was slowly getting easier for him. Minato noticed how quickly his son was adapting to the increased training and considered it a side effect of the Kyuubi residing in his son, allowing him to heal from his training much faster than most. Another addition to the training was Minato having Naruto try and keep the leaf on his forehead throughout his training session. It was nearing the end of the morning workout and Minato had noticed that the leaf had stayed attached to his son's head the entire time. He gave a prideful smile as he knew his son had yet to notice this himself. Good job, Naruto, I think another week and we can up the weight again. Minato said encouragingly, also notice something still on your forehead. Naruto stopped for a moment then realized what his dad was talking about. He started jumping excitedly and throwing his hands in the air. Does this mean I get to learn that jutsu now? Naruto asked excitedly. I believe you are ready, Naruto, come with me, Minato said, walking towards the tree line. We will start by practicing tree walking. I want you to be able to walk up and down this tree at least 10 times in a row before I show you the water walking technique. Minato finished showing Naruto what he meant as he slowly walked up the tree like it was the ground. Naruto stood wide-eyed staring at his father. Minato sat him down and explained the technique to him and told him to take a kunai to mark his progress. Minato got up explaining he had a meeting with the elders to attend to and that he would be back later to check his progress. Naruto was stumped. He couldn't manage to get more than a few feet of the ground before the tree would blast him off, leaving a large mark where his foot was. Getting frustrated, he angrily threw his kunai only to watch it be deflected by a large man with white hair. You know those are dangerous tools, you should be more careful. The mystery man said in a teasing voice, though Naruto was now on guard, unsure why this man was on his property. Why are you here? Who are you? Naruto asked, reaching for another kunai. Relax, Gaki, I'm a good friend of your dad's. I was simply coming to check on my godson, thank you very much. The man explained, and how could you not recognize the great toad sage of Mount Myoboku? I am the great Jiraiya. The now revealed Jiraiya stated as he took his pose on top of a large toad that seemed to appear out of nowhere. Wait, your uncle Jiraiya, Naruto exclaimed, realizing what was going on now. Dad has told me a lot about you. He said you are an awesome ninja, even though I find that hard to believe. Naruto said the last part slightly jokingly. You just can't recognize greatness when you see it, Baka Gaki. Jiraiya protested, whatever Gaki, you seem to be having trouble here. I have an idea, let's go get something to eat and I'll give you a few tips on how to do this exercise. Jiraiya asked, getting a happy nod from Naruto. According to your old man, you have a taste for ramen. Quote. Naruto got excited as the two left to go into town. He noticed everyone greeting Jiraiya much like they would greet his dad. When they made their way to the small ramen stand, the two sat and ordered their respective ramen. So why does everyone treat you so respectfully? I see them treat my dad that way, but he's Hokage. Naruto said, trying not to be too disrespectful. Well kid, at one point in time me and my teammates were quite famous for being one of the strongest three-man squads in the world. Ever hear of the Sanin? Jiraiya asked with a grin on his face. You're that Jiraiya? No way, I mean that's cool that you're my godfather, but how can that awesome guy from the history books be you? You don't seem to be the great ninja the way the books say, just some weird old guy ya know. Naruto said, laughing at the face Jiraiya made at the comment. I am not some weird old guy. I'll have you know that pose strikes fear into the hearts of the strongest men. Jiraiya proclaimed. Or passing squirrel. Naruto said, laughing as he watched Jiraiya's face deflate. Alright Gaki, you had your laugh, so you're having trouble with the tree walking exercise? Jiraiya asked. Yeah, every time I try I get a few feet and get blown off. I don't know what to do. I'm doing what dad told me to do and it's just hard. Naruto said as a depressed look came on his face. Don't get too down kid, that is at least a high genin technique you're learning. It's going to be a little tough for you, but here's a bit of advice. Minato most likely told you to run at the tree after collecting the chakra in your souls, correct? Jiraiya asked, receiving a nod from Naruto. That how he learned, but you may have trouble with this, so next time you try taking it one step at a time and focus on how much chakra you are using to keep yourself stuck to the tree, and once you get a feel for how much you need, try to maintain that and then you can start picking up speed. Okay, that makes sense, thanks Uncle Jiraiya. Naruto exclaimed happily. So what do you say to me getting you a present? Consider it an apology for me leaving for so long right after you were born. Jiraiya said, causing Naruto to jump for joy and started excitedly chanting the word present. Minato has done well, the boy is mature for his age but hasn't lost his childlike cheer. I see a lot of potential in him. Jiraiya thought to himself as he led Naruto through the streets of Konoha. The two walked for a good 15 minutes before arriving at a small weapons shop in the shinobi district of town. The two began to walk inside as Naruto was in awe of everything around him. Just as he was about to ask what they were getting there, Naruto saw his dad standing by the counter looking at him with a smile on his face. Well, hey there you two. Minato said, getting a shocked face from Naruto. So Naruto, your uncle Jiraiya told me about wanting to get you a gift and I suggested two things. The first was a set of kunai like mine because you seem to be grasping them better than you grasp the normal kunai. The second was a sword of some kind if you wanted. Your mother was quite proficient in kenjutsu and I wanted to give you the opportunity to follow in her stead. With the taijutsu training we have been doing, you seem like you would have an aptitude for using a sword. Minato explained, looking down at the shocked expression on his son's face. Naruto was in awe. This had to be one of the best days he'd ever had. He didn't even know what to say as he looked at his dad and uncle, standing next to each other. He simply lunged at trying to grab them both in a hug. I love you Dad, Uncle Jiraiya, you guys are the best. Naruto exclaimed, some happy tears coming down his face. After the little heartwarming scene, the trio began perusing the shop to find a descent sword for Naruto as they waited for the shopkeeper to check if they had the kunai in stock or it would have to be custom ordered. As Naruto was searching around, a small girl with brown hair came up to him with a smile on her face. Hi, I'm Tenten, she introduced herself, holding out her hand to the young boy. Hi, I'm Naruto. Naruto said shakily. He hadn't really spoke to anyone his age before, so he was unsure how to handle it. So what are you looking for, Naruto? Tenten asked, smiling at him as the boy was still unsure of what to do. Well, Dad said that he was going to get me a sword, but I'm having a hard time deciding which one I want. Naruto said, scratching the back of his head. Well, do you like to be more powerful or would you rather be more agile in a fight? Tenten asked curiously. I'm sorry, I'm probably bothering you. I just get really excited about weapons. No, it's okay, I just never talked to someone my own age before and I'm just a little lost. But I'd say I'm more of an agility fighter. I want something that is not too cumbersome to carry but can still do a good bit of damage, something between a katana and a dagger, ya know. Naruto said, pumping his fist in the air, sporting his trademark grin. Tenten laughed at the boy, thinking he was cute for being just as excited as she was. She walked around with him till she found a ninjutsu that was a little heavier than normal and a bit longer, roughly 21 inches. Handing him the sword, Naruto grabs it and holds it in his hand. As Naruto held the sword, something just felt right. He turned to his dad, handing the sword to him. What do you think, Dad? Naruto asked Minato as he came up behind his son. Minato studied the ninjutsu for a moment before handing it back to Naruto. I think that would be a good fit for you, Naruto, small enough to move quickly but still packs a punch. Minato smiled. After a moment he turned to see a now wide-eyed Tenten staring him dead in the eyes, unsure of what to do. That's the son of the Yondaime Hokage. Tenten screamed in her mind. Oh dad, this is Tenten, she helped me pick out the sword. Naruto exclaimed, grabbing Tenten's hand and pulling her closer. Well, thank you very much, young lady. I'm sure you and Naruto here will make fast friends. Maybe you two should train together, help him get used to that sword. Minato said with a light smile on his face. Hi Hokage-sama. Tenten said on instinct, not sure what else to do. Minato laughed and placed a hand on the young girl's shoulder. Relax, young one, I'm just like anyone else. I'm sure Naruto sees you as a friend, so please call me Minato. Minato said to the young girl to try and relax her. Yeah, I made a friend. Naruto jumped happily, causing Tenten to blush slightly before laughing. Maybe it would be fun training with someone her own age for a change. Chapter 3. Naruto and Tenten were standing in one of Konoha's many training fields with their swords in hand. Naruto had outgrown the small training area behind the Namikaze household and had taken to using this training field due to its proximity to the lake and surrounding trees, along with an open space to allow for spars in many different environments. The two had taken to meeting around 5 a.m. every morning to go through their basic physical workout. After their workout they would do a few warm-up spars in both taijutsu and kenjutsu in the open area and on the water to help keep up their chakra control and get a good warm-up in. Once they got finished with the spars and workouts, they would practice the various jutsus and chakra exercises that Minato would give them for a few hours. Minato usually showed up every day or every other day to check in on their progress and give them new things to work on once they completed what they were previously given. This little daily schedule had started about a year ago when the two ran into each other again on the training ground after Naruto's father decided it was best for him to have more space to train. Flashback. Tenten was working hard trying to hit all the targets she had set up throughout the training ground. She had about 30 targets set up and had managed to hit around 25 to 27 every time. She had been working up a good sweat and was getting annoyed on how she couldn't seem to improve any further. She had been so focused on what she was doing she didn't notice the two new arrivals approaching behind her. Hey Tenten, Naruto said with a big grin, waving at his friend. The two had seen each other quite a bit since they first met, given Naruto always went to that weapons shop from that point on for anything he needed, and he would tag along with his dad when he would have to go. Hey Naruto, what are you doing out here? Tenten asked with a smile, happy to see her friend. Well, I thought it would be best if Naruto had some more room to train. We can find another training ground if you'd like, or you are more than welcome to join us. Minato said with a kind smile, making Tenten jump as she had yet to notice the Yondaime Hokage accompanying his son. Hokage-sama. Tenten shouted in surprise, having not noticed Minato at first. Please forgive me for not greeting you. I've told you before, Tenten, Minato-san is more than adequate. And of course Naruto does most of his training on his own. I just give him things to work on when I have the time, and I'm sure he would love to train with his friend. Minato said, ruffling his son's hair. Yeah, Tenten, we can work on our kenjutsu together like we talked about, ya know. Naruto said excitedly. Well, if it is okay with the both of you, I would very much like to train with Naruto. Tenten said. I have no problem with it, and Naruto has already said he wants you to join him, so it looks like you two will be training partners from now on. Minato said, smiling at the two friends. End flashback. The two had changed their look quite a bit, and knowing they would be entering the academy in a month, Minato had given Naruto permission to take an early entry exam in order to enter the academy with Tenten, and had decided to invest in more shinobi-appropriate attire. Naruto was sporting a similar outfit to his father but elected to go with a black shirt and pants combo with an orange Uzumaki symbol emblazed on the shoulders. His hair was a bit longer and starting to look more like his father's but just a bit shorter. Tenten was sporting a sleeveless white kunoichi top and tight black pants and was now sporting her trademark buns, as she said it made training much easier when her hair was not in the way. For the past 2 hours the two had been practicing with enhancing their weapons with their nature affinity, Naruto's being wind and Tenten's being fire, and had managed to take out quite a few trees in the process. After a little while the two figured they would take a small break whilst they waited for Minato to arrive. The two had made their way to their favorite tree, which granted great shade for most of the day, so it had become their break and lunch spot. The two sat under the tree and talked about how their training had gone that morning. "You've gotten really good at using your wind chakra with that ninjutsu, Naru-kun," Tenten said, smiling as she rested her head on Naruto's shoulder. "Thanks, Ten-chan. But you're still leaps and bounds ahead of me in pure kenjutsu. It is the only way I can keep up, ya know," Naruto said, giving Tenten one of his big fox grins. "Thanks. I wonder what Hokage-sama is going to have for us today?" Tenten asked, curious. "He said he would have something new for us today, right?" "Yeah, and I still say it weird you call Dad that, but I really have no clue. He may just give us more exercises to get our chakra control up," Naruto said with a shrug. Tenten shrugged as she continued to rest her head on Naruto's shoulder. The two had grown very close over the past year, and small moments like this were becoming more and more common between the two, and Minato would take every chance he got to tease the two about it. They still had about half an hour before Minato usually showed up, and the two ended up dozing off in the shade of the tree. However, the two were unaware that two figures had been watching them for a little while at this point and picked now to make their presence known. "Minato, your boy is starting young, isn't he? Makes his dear old godfather proud," Jiraiya said loudly, waking the two teens. "I mean, not even 7 yet and already got himself a lady." "Shut up, you old pervert." Naruto jumped up, his face beet red along with Tenten's. "Wait. Uncle Jiraiya, when did you get back in the village?" Naruto said, happy to see his godfather but still annoyed at his teasing. "Hey Gaki, I'm praising you here, no need to get so offended," Jiraiya said, holding back a laugh from the shades of red coming from the two. "I mean, I was completely unsuccessful when I was your age. We are just friends," the two shouted in unison, having become used to the old sage's antics. "Sensei, I do believe you have teased the young couple quite enough," Minato said with a goofy grin. "Come on Dad, not you too," Naruto pouted. "Relax Naruto, it's all in good fun," Minato said, ruffling his son's hair. "And good morning you too." "Good morning Dad, Hokage-sama," the two said, starting to calm down. "Tenten, I've said just Minato-san is fine, but if you must, I suppose Minato-sensei is appropriate," Minato said, smiling at the young girl. "Hi, Minato-sensei," Tenten said with a smile. "Anyways, judging by the scorched landscape and the multiple missing trees, I can assume your training went well," Minato said, smiling at the two as Naruto began scratching the back of his head and Tenten started looking at her feet. "Yeah, I guess we went a little overboard," Naruto said, having the sense to be embarrassed at the destruction he had caused. "I apologize sensei, we got carried away," Tenten said, still a bit bashful about all the damage they had caused. "Well, that's quite alright, fairly normal for these training grounds, but I must say I am very impressed with the both of you," Minato said with a smile. "I mean, in only a month you've come this far with your elemental training, and you two aren't even genin yet. That's really impressive, so why not show me what the two of you can do?" Minato said, pointing to a couple of rather thick trees off in the distance. The two nodded and made their way over to the pair of trees. First Naruto stepped up, taking his ninjutsu out of the sheath he had taken to wearing on his back most of the time. He gripped it in his right hand and began pushing wind chakra to the blade. After a few moments he took charge at the tree and in one swipe made a clean cut through the entire trunk, causing the tree to come down. Next Tenten took out her katana, which she had taken to wearing on her hip, and pushed as much fire chakra through it as she could, making a sweeping swing at Boulder, causing a melted split down the middle. Minato gave a nod of approval at the two and smiled. He truly was impressed at how far the two had come and was more than certain they were ready for what he had for them. "I must say this is quite impressive. At this rate you two may only really need to go to the academy for a year," Minato said happily. "Thanks sensei, Dad," the two said in unison. "Well, seeing as you two will be starting the academy next month, I figured I would give you both a few things that will keep you busy when you're not doing your academy work. Unfortunately I was going to do this a bit earlier, but I had to wait for Jiraiya here to get back, seeing as he has more of an arsenal of jutsu as compared to myself," Minato said, nodding to Jiraiya. "That just because you don't want to use hand seals?" Jiraiya said, laughing. "Anyways, I have a few jutsu for the both of you, and, seeing as you have complementing chakra natures, once you each master your own jutsu you can work on a coordinated attack. First, Naruto, I have Fuden, Isatorimu no Jutsu, which allows you to create a stream of air you can use to deflect incoming projectiles, or you can use it to enhance fire-style jutsu. The second jutsu I have for you is Fuden, Tsukaisatepu no Jutsu, which creates a pocket of wind at your feet and allows you to propel yourself a few meters in a chosen direction, allowing you to quickly dodge a large attack or close the distance between you and an opponent. These two jutsu fit well into your close-range fighting style and should help keep you alive if you get in a real fight. Jiraiya smiled as he turned to Tenten. I haven't forgotten about you, Tenten. First is Kaden, Shuriken no Jutsu. This jutsu allows you to cloak your ranged weapons in fire, adding a little extra kick to them, and Kaden, Fyasutorimu no Jutsu, which allows you to create a stream of fire much like Naruto's Fuden, Isatorimu no Jutsu. The two young kids were wide-eyed at what they were hearing. This was way more than they were expecting and were now wondering how long it would take them to get all of this down. Tenten was giddy but trying to stay composed around the two famous shinobi in front of her. Naruto, on the other hand, had no problem showing just how exited he was. Hell yeah, we get some awesome jutsu. We're going to kick everyone's butt in the academy, ya know. Naruto shouted, bouncing around and sporting his usually fox grin. Thank you, Jiraiya-sama, Minato-sensei. Tenten said, smiling brightly. You two have earned it, but understand, these are all C-rank techniques and will most likely take you both a few months to get them down packed, so don't get discouraged if it takes a long time. Minato said, smiling as Jiraiya handed over the scrolls with the details on each technique. The two sat and studied the scrolls, trading when they were done with the one they had, and seemed to understand that this was going to be tough but also confident they could handle it. Once they had finished their first look at each scroll, Minato asked the two to perform a quick taijutsu spar so he could see how they were coming along. He looked on proudly as the two began to spar at near Chunin level shinobi and calmly looked for any errors in their styles as he watched. After a few minutes he called the fight, pointing out their errors and how to cover up their weak points better. After he had finished with his little lesson, he had an idea to test the two in his own way. I have a test for you too, Minato said, showing them one small bell, causing Jiraiya to look at his former student curiously. Whichever one of you manages to get this bell off of me before noon, which gives you about 45 minutes, I will teach you a new technique. A word of advice: don't hold back on me or you won't even touch the bells, Minato said with a serious expression. Naruto and Tenten gave Minato a confident look, but both were unsure of how they could possibly accomplish the task, as they both knew just how strong the man in front of them was. All right, Dad, prepare to be beat, ya know, Naruto said confidently as Tenten nodded. Well then, if you two are prepared, then start, Minato shouted as he watched his two young students disappear back into the tree line. Well, they may be cocky, but they aren't stupid enough to take you head on, Jiraiya said, pleased at the two for not being outright stupid. Aren't those two a bit young to be partaking in that test, Minato-san? A new voice came from behind the two adults. Sensei, Sandaime-sama, the two said together, surprised to see the retired former Hokage in front of them. I happened to be taking a stroll in this area and noticed the two of you here, and it piqued my curiosity, Hiruzen said in his grandfatherly tone. I am curious, Minato, why did you choose to have these two participate in this test? I'm sure there are other ways to measure their ability. Not that the test is bad by any means, it's just normally used for a different purpose. It's more than their ability I want to see. These two have been training together for a year now and could be quite the fearsome duo in the future if their teamwork is up to snuff. I could have easily tested their individual ability other ways, but I wanted to see how they would handle this, Minato responded, concentrating on the location of his two students, and they seemed to have picked up on the point behind the test pretty quickly. With Naruto and Tenten, so, you think the point is to get us to work together to get the bell? Naruto asked his friend. I do, Naru-kun, it's the only thing that makes sense. How could he expect two kids who aren't even genin to be able to go up against him one-on-one? Even together we don't really stand much of a chance, Tenten said calmly. Tenten always had to keep Naruto grounded in reality because he tended to think he could do anything and could be quite reckless at times. So do you think we should use that combo we've been working on? Naruto asked. It might be our only shot, Naru-kun. It most likely won't work, but it's our only shot, Tenten said seriously. It was quite rare for either of the two to show any kind of fear or doubt, but they also understood that their opponent was an insurmountable mountain for them at this point. They had been sitting there discussing how to go about this little test for about 15 minutes now and were hard-pressed to find a surefire way to succeed. Well, I guess it's now or never, I suppose. I can't think of another way to go about this, Ten-chan. Naruto said, readying himself to move. Back in the clearing. You two are more than welcome to watch, but I would ask that you move back a bit. Looks like they decided to make their move. Minato said, taking out one of his kunai. After a few moments, Naruto emerged from the tree line with ninjutsu in hand, running full speed at his father. Behind him he saw a barrage of projectiles making their way towards him, courtesy of Tenten making use of her ranged ability to provide Naruto with some cover on his approach without hitting him, around his son. These two have been working on this. They must have a lot of trust in each other to do something like this. Tenten trusts Naruto to keep anything from getting to her, while Naruto trusts Tenten to not accidentally injure him. Minato thought to himself as he locked weapons with his son. When the weapons made contact, Minato was surprised to see his son's ninjutsu cut clean through his kunai. Using his reflexes, he grabbed his son's arm and moved himself out of the way of the strike. Making a move quickly, he got behind Naruto holding a kunai to the back of his head. Tenten froze, as she just saw firsthand just how fast Minato was. She never saw his movements before Naruto was captured. I think that's enough, you two. Minato said, smiling. But neither of us got the bell. Naruto said in a defeated tone. Yes, sensei, we still have a few minutes. Tenten said, though was quite glad that Minato had choose to call it. True, but you two did get the point behind the exercise almost immediately, and judging from that little combo you just showed, you two have the utmost trust in each other. Minato said, smiling. Indeed, I am looking forward to seeing how you two will grow in the future. Hiruzen said, smiling. Quite, that was truly impressive. Jiraiya said, smiling at the two. I think you two are more than ready to be genin right now, honestly, but you will go to the academy like everyone else. Naruto and Tenten, I know you wanted to go with him, so I'm sure this is not an issue. I know your father wanted you to go. Minato said, smiling at the two. Hi sensei, dad. The two said in unison. Good, now we've spent a good while out here now and I'm sure you two are ready for lunch. So I guess you can start working on your new techniques in the morning, seeing as Tenten works in the shop in the afternoon and Naruto will be studying for the latter half of the day. I would join the two of you, but I have duties to attend to. Minato said, smiling. The two nodded, gathering their things and making their way back to the village. The two knew they had their work cut out for them, but they were exited, seeing as they were so close to become real ninja. They continued to train every morning for the following month, working hard on everything that Minato had given them right up until it was time for them to enter the academy. Things were defiantly going to get more interesting from here on out. Chapter 4. Naruto and Tenten were once again resting under their usual tree, waiting for Minato to arrive. The two had spent their last month before starting the academy putting their training into overdrive. Tenten had asked for the month off from her parents' shop so the two could spend the entire month training together, and the two took full advantage of this. Over the month the two had managed to become quite skilled with the two jutsu that Minato and Jiraiya had given them and had started to incorporate them into their tactics and combos. The two had also used their time to improve further on their teamwork, using their afternoons to work on their combos together. Another thing both aspiring ninjas were working on was the Shunshin no Jutsu, that Minato had taught to both of them after they were able to pass Minato's bell test and were becoming quite proficient at it. Naruto had attempted to get the Hiraishin no Jutsu, but Minato told Naruto was not quite ready for that and he would consider it when Naruto reached Chunin. Tenten had become quite skilled in using her new weapon scroll, courtesy of the Fuinjutsu that Minato and Jiraiya had given them, and was able to accurately hit around 95 out of 100 targets straight from the scroll. Naruto had greatly risen in his Kenjutsu skill and was able to keep up with Tenten without the assistance of his wind element. Naruto was watching Tenten sleep on his shoulder when a thought crossed his mind. Naruto had known about his furry tenant for quite a long time but had never really spoken about it with anyone except his dad and uncle. Minato had told his son that it was Naruto's secret to share, but to be careful who he shared that information with, as the information was sensitive and could make Naruto a potential target to foreign shinobi. Hey Tenten, Naruto said, nudging Tenten slight to wake her up. What, Naru? Tenten said groggily, I was having such a good nap. There is something I want to talk to you about, but you have to promise it stays between us. Naruto said nervously. What going on Naruto? You are acting weird, Tenten said looking curiously at Naruto. Just promise me please. Naruto said desperately. I promise, Naruto, you know you can trust me, Tenten said with a worried expression. Okay, so how much do you know about the Kyuubi no Kitsune? Naruto asked Tenten. It was a demon that tried to destroy the village 6 years ago, but your dad destroyed it, right? Tenten said, unsure where Naruto was going with this. Not really, Dad did defeat the fox but not that way, Naruto said. You cannot actually destroy one of the Biju, you can only seal them away or they will come back. Okay, so the Yondaime Hokage sealed it away, what's this about Naruto? Tenten said, still confused and getting worried. In order to seal one of the Biju you have to create what's known as a Jinchuriki. Naruto said nervously, or a person with a Biju sealed inside them. So, your dad sealed the Kyuubi inside of someone? Tenten asked. Yes, he sealed it inside a newborn child. Naruto said, getting more nervous. Okay, are you telling me your dad took someone's child? Tenten said, trying to figure out what Naruto was getting at. Tenten, I was born the day of the attack, Naruto said, taking a deep breath. Dad sealed the Kyuubi in his own newborn son, I have the demon fox sealed in me. Tenten was silent. She was attempting to process this new information, as it was quite shocking. Tenten, Naruto said, scared of what she might think, please don't think any differently of me. This is a lot to take in, Naruto. Tenten started. I understand if you don't want to be around me, Tenten, Naruto said in a defeated tone. Naruto, Tenten tried to start again. I mean, I'm sure you lost someone in the attack. Naruto was rambling in a depressed tone. Naruto. Tenten tried again, a little more frustrated. Just please don't tell anyone, Naruto started before he felt a fist ram into his stomach. Naruto, will you shut up for 2 seconds? Tenten shouted, I am not going to think of you any differently. I care about you more than anything and this is nothing. It changes absolutely nothing about you. You are still Naruto no matter what is sealed inside of you. Really, Ten-chan? Naruto said, shocked as his eyes began to water slightly. Yes, Naru-kun, I know that must have been hard for you to tell me. I can imagine what some people would think upon hearing that, but Naruto, you are also one of the most important people in my life and you can trust me with anything. Thank you for trusting me as much as I trust you, Naruto. Tenten said to her blonde friend with a kind smile on her face. She had begun to try and say something else but the words never formed as she was engulfed in the tight embrace of her blonde friend. She felt his arms wrap around her as she proceeded to wrap her arms around him. Thank you, Ten-chan. Naruto chalked up, holding his friend tight, trying to hide the tears of joy and relief rolling down his face. Tenten just held him a bit tighter and let him rest his head in the crook of her neck as the two became comfortable in each other's embrace. As the two were having their moment of trust, Minato was hiding in the shadows, having watched the whole scene play out with a smile on his face. Those two really do trust each other. Minato sighed as he was truly happy for his son being able to find someone he could truly trust. Minato stood there for a few more moments before he decided he needed to complete his duty as a father, which meant it was now time for him to embarrass the living hell out of his son. Though I am happy for you too, I have to let you know I am a bit too young for grandchildren. Minato said with a grin, watching the two jump up with angry red faces directed at him. He decided that it would be funny given him and Tenten's father decided to have the talk with the two a few weeks ago, given that they were going to be ninja very soon and it was important for them to know. It embarrassed the hell out of both the kids, but that didn't stop Minato from using that to poke fun at the two. Shut up, Dat Sensei. The two yelled in unison, their faces getting redder with each passing second. I'm just teasing the two of you, Minato said with his hands up, trying to keep himself from laughing too hard. Anyways, today is the last day that the three of us will be meeting like this for quite a while. You two are taking the first step in your ninja careers tomorrow and everyone expects big things from the two of you. Now remember, you passed your entrance exam with flying colors, so tomorrow they will be giving you a placement exam to decide how long you need to stay at the academy. The two of you will most likely completely test out of the academy, however, I would like each of you to spend at least a year in the academy to get to know your peers and to get used to working with different people. Minato waited for a few moments as he got a nod from each of them, and as far as he could tell it seemed like they understood. Though he knew they were more than ready to be put straight onto Genin's squads, he really wanted them to grow their circle a bit and have the experience of being an academy student, even if it was only going to be a year. Well, I'm glad the two of you understand. Now with that out of the way, I do have a couple of presents for the two of you to celebrate your mock graduation from my tutelage. Minato said, smiling as he revealed two long packages to the two kids. Though you are both welcome to come to me if you need any more advice, I do believe you are ready for these. Naruto ripped his apart, first revealing a sheathed ninjutsu in a black holster with a single orange Uzumaki swirl in the middle. The handle was a dark black with an orange strip spiraling up the grip until it reached the hilt, which revealed also to be an orange Uzumaki symbol on the end. Naruto unsheathed the blade, revealing it to be dark black with orange designs laid throughout thinly, best described as small orange branches showing in the night. Naruto and Tenten sat and stared at the blade in awe of the craftsmanship. Next up was Tenten, who also opened her gift quickly but not quite as violently as Naruto. When the packaging was removed, it revealed a white sheath holstering a katana. The sheath was white with some red designs on it, much like the blade of Naruto's ninjutsu. The grip was also white and had a red strip spiraling up it, much similar to Naruto's, though there was a leaf symbol rather than an Uzumaki symbol on the hilt of her blade. When she removed the blade, she smiled to see a blade very similar to Naruto's, though it was white with the red branches decorating the blade. The two sat speechless for a while, admiring the blades wide-eyed. I had these custom ordered for the two of you a while back and got them in about 2 weeks ago. I needed to add a few seals to them before I could give them to you, just to make things a bit more convenient, just your basic cleaning and sharpening seals so the blades always show the craftsmanship. Minato said, smiling. The blades themselves are crafted out of chakra metal and are extremely potent when used with elemental chakra, so I figured it would be a perfect fit for the two of you. Thanks so much, Dad, Naruto said, jumping around as he could no longer hold his excitement. Thank you, Minato-sensei. Tenten said, equally as excited as both continued to study their blades. You earned it. You two have worked very hard and have more than earned these blades. Now I know you two have been practicing some pretty devastating combos with your old blades, so why not break the new ones in? Minato asked as the two readied themselves with their new blades, and as an added bonus I have on more treat for the two of you, but this is also a way for me to see where you two stand against an expert kenjutsu user. Yugao, you can come out now. A young woman appeared in front of the two from what appeared to be thin air. The girl stood about shoulder height to Minato and had long purple hair that framed her Anbu cat mask. The mask was designed with red markings, one on the top and two on the sides. She was wearing her basic Anbu uniform minus the armor, seeing as she was not actually on duty that day, so she was just wearing her sleeveless black top with a pair of black pants and her black sandals. Naruto and Tenten also noticed the katana strapped to her back as she stood silent waiting for her orders. Relax, Yugao, you aren't on duty and these are my students. I wanted you to meet them and test their skills with their swords. Minato said, causing the Anbu to relax. You can also take off the mask, as I have the feeling that the three of you will be seeing quite a bit of each other in the coming months. Yugao nodded and removed her mask, revealing her face, which bore a serious professional expression. To Naruto and Tenten, Yugao was a young, beautiful woman who did not seem to be any older than her late teens. She looked at the two young children standing in front of her, then gave a questioning glance toward Minato. Yugao, this is my son Naruto and his friend Tenten. I have been teaching them for the past year and they have also both taken to kenjutsu quite well. If it is not too much to ask, I would like you to test these two skills in kenjutsu. Minato said, but noticed the concerned face on his subordinate's face. Also, I wouldn't worry too much about going easy on them, they may surprise you. Hi, Hokage-sama. Yugao said with a salute. Yugao, you can relax, this is not a mission or an order, just a favor, and you know I hate the Hokage-sama crap, so please just stick with Minato or Minato-san if you must when you're out of uniform. Minato said, scratching the back of his head. Hi Yugao-san, I'm Naruto. Tenten, nice to meet you. The two said in unison, giving a mock salute to the young Anbu. Well, hi there. Yugao said with a smile, relaxing slightly. I'm Izuki Yugao. I am one of the Anbu who works for your sensei or father, in your case Naruto. Now that introductions are done with, I want the two of you to have a go at Yugao here. Don't hold back. I want the both of you to remove your weight so we can see your full potential. Minato said to the two as they nodded and released the seals on their weights. Alright, Naruto, why don't you go first? Naruto nodded, took his position across from Yugao, giving her a small bow. Yugao returned the gesture before both opponents readied their weapons. The two stood at the ready, waiting Minato's order. Remember, this is a pure kenjutsu spar, so no ninjutsu. Minato said loudly, being. Naruto instantly charged Yugao with his hand on his sheathed ninjutsu. Yugao prepared herself for the frontal assault as Naruto closed the gap and went to draw his blade. His stance seems solid, but the frontal assault is a bit predictable. Yugao thought to herself. Much to Yugao's surprise, however, when Naruto came into range for his strike, he feigned his first strike and attempted to maneuver around Yugao, going for a strike from her rear. Not bad, kid, Yugao thought. His moves are a little telegraphed, but he at least went for a less obvious strike. Yugao parried the strike easily enough, jumping forward and turning to face Naruto. Naruto again attempted to get behind Yugao, but she moved to meet him, parrying his strike and countering with one of her own. The two had a short exchange of sword play before Yugao was able to disarm Naruto and had her blade poised to cut his neck all in one smooth movement. Damn, she's good. Naruto thought to himself, I guess there is a reason Dad picked her as one of his Anbu. At this point, Minato appeared beside them and called the match. Yugao and Naruto sheathed their weapons and bowed to each other again. Not bad, Naruto, Yugao stated, your stance and technique are very advanced for your age, but I would say you need to work on concealing your movements better. Your movements were far too easy to read. If you can work on that, I think you could be a force to be reckoned with. Thanks, Yugao-sensei. Naruto said, I will definitely work on that. A like good showing, Naruto, Minato said, proud of his son's progress. Alright, Tenten, your turn. Yes sir, Minato-sensei, Tenten responded as she got into position in front of Yugao as both opponents bowed to each other. Same rules apply, no ninjutsu, only kenjutsu and taijutsu, Minato said, begin. Tenten immediately took a defensive stance, electing not to make the first strike as Naruto did. Yugao recognized the defensive stance and decided to make her move rather than trying to wait out her opponent. Tenten managed to parry Yugao's initial strike but quickly became overwhelmed and attempted to make some distance. Well, she's smart, not diving into a fight when she knows she is facing a smart opponent, and making distance as soon as she becomes overwhelmed. Yugao mused as she closed the distance again. The two clashed swords again and Yugao quickly gained the advantage. Tenten blocked strikes as best she could until she saw an opening when Yugao attempted to disarm her. Tenten slid behind Yugao and attempted to grab her sword arm and get into striking position. Impressive, looks like I got a little cocky, Yugao thought as she felt Tenten's hand grip her wrist. Yugao, however, was able to quickly turn the grip around and Tenten placing her into a wrist lock, simultaneously disarming her. Tenten had not realized what happened until she felt Yugao's blade on her neck. Holy shit, when did she get there? Tenten thought to herself. Minato once again appeared next to the two opponents and called the match. Tenten and Yugao separated, sheathed their weapons, and bowed to each other. Not bad at all, Tenten, Yugao praised. You show much more restraint than Naruto and your movements are not as telegraphed, however you need to be more confident in your decisions. You hesitated the moment you grabbed my wrist, which is what gave me the opportunity to disarm you and, had that been a real fight, kill you. Yes ma'am, Yugao-sensei. Tenten said, still a bit shaken by how quickly she was disarmed. I know I had some criticism for the both of you, but understand that you are both far above what could be expected of someone your age. You two are both very talented, with experience and polishing of your individual techniques is mostly what you both need. Yugao stated, smiling at the two children. Thank you, Yugao-sensei. Both responded in unison. Well, that was quite the showing, both of you. Minato stated, smiling at the two proudly, I am very impressed with your progress and have no doubt that the two of you will make incredible shinobi. I think the two of you should take the rest of the day off, go have fun and rest, you have a big day tomorrow. The two nodded and said their goodbyes, agreeing to meet in their usual spot at their usual time before heading to the academy. Tenten had agreed to spend some time with her parents this afternoon as a celebration of entering the academy. Naruto attempted to stay, but Minato told him to go home and relax and he would meet him there with a surprise shortly. Once both children had left, Minato turned to Yugao. Thank you for doing that, Yugao-san. What do you think of them? Minato asked. They are quite impressive kids, Yugao said. When they get some experience under their belt, Send them my way, we could use that potential in the Anbu. Well, speaking of that, depending on your answer, that may happen sooner than you think. Minato said. What do you mean, Hokage-sama? You aren't thinking about sending them straight into the Anbu, are you? Yugao asked, shocked that the Hokage would even suggest it. Oh no, they are too young and inexperienced. Also, we are in times of peace, that is only something I would only consider during wartime. And even then, I would try to avoid conscripting children. Minato said seriously. Well then what? Yugao asked, now confused. How would you feel about being a Jonin sensei? Minato asked. Yugao did not know what to think. Did Minato no longer need her service? Was her skill not up to par for the Anbu? This is not a demotion if that is what you are worried about. I do not want to keep anyone in the Anbu too long. The types of missions the Anbu takes are stressful and after too long can cause mental strain. Minato said, however, that is not why I am asking you. I think you would make a great teacher to our next generation. Just think about it and get back with me, you are still in my service for the next year either way. Yes sir. Hokage-sama. Yugao saluted Minato and shunshined away. Minato smiled, hoping that Yugao did not take his offer the wrong way. He shrugged and decided to talk to her about it more later. He then focused some chakra and teleported himself back to his home. He smiled as he saw Naruto snoozing on the couch and elected to leave him be. Tomorrow was going to be a big day. That was part 1 of Naruto's destiny with the full 9 tales. If you enjoyed the story, like, share, and subscribe to Fox Fanfiction. Tell us in the comments, could Konoha even control this Naruto? See you in the next part.